11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
All right, welcome everybody. I think everything's working, and we'll get right to it. It's the middle of the night, so I doubt very many people will join us live here, but I am recording this live. I'm going to do this in response to Clover's video. I'll put a link to his video here in the live comments, but I forgot to put it into the main video. I'm not going to try to do it while I'm live. It'll be distracting, but if we take a look at Clover's video, I do have essentially a list of notes in one of the comments over there that as I was listening to his video, the one that instigated this reply, I'll go over the notes. So I did a show earlier and I addressed some of the things, and I think he saw that, or at least he saw my comment. So he saw some of my responses to the first half of his video. He did about an hour video earlier today. And it was just a live video, and somewhere in there he kind of got on the topic of his drone and whether or not he needed some kind of a license. And because he's new to it, he was discovering all the different facets, and with his live audience they were using both the robots and the search engines to discover some stuff. So I went live. I watched it afterwards, watched about half of it, and addressed some of the issues that he had live earlier today. But then I finished listening to his video, and like I said, there's quite a few things that I forgot I didn't address because I didn't listen to the whole video. He actually went through quite a few other questions. Probably the worst introduction to a video, but that means that's the backstory. That's the origin story, why we're going to talk about everything you need to know about using drones in YouTube videos. So we're on YouTube, and YouTube, is a video hosting platform. I suppose you could just fill that in with Rumble or one of the other platforms, because what we're going to be talking about is more of an FAA issue than it is a platform issue. But when we're using drones in our videos, they're probably going to be classified as not recreational, and we'll get into that in a second. But because of that, there is some question and there is some concern as to whether or not we're able to, or who's able to, or what you have to do to be, let's say, legit when you're using a drone camera in a video. So let's get into it. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to be talking about everything you need to know about using drones in YouTube videos. This is instigated by Clover did a live chat earlier today and asked some questions. So I'm going to try to address those questions. So I'm going to go through, to the best of my recollection, the intro to all this. Why are we even talking about this? What are we talking about? Drone cameras are, more and more popular. They're getting more and more capable, and more people are using them. They are cameras, digital cameras, that can be flown remotely. So they have, most people I think know what we're talking about. They have the propellers on them. They fly around like a helicopter, and they can kind of move up and down and backwards and forwards in space. The thing is, they exist from the toys, and Clover and I had both bought, which we're going to call them toys, years ago. And when they first kind of hit the scene, they were crude, and they literally were toys with cameras in them. And the cameras were toys, were inexpensive, were poor, and poor quality. And the drones themselves were difficult to fly and poor quality. They were interesting and cool at the time, and they were what they are. Nowadays, the drones are much more capable devices, and you can get them, again, the whole spectrum, from little things that literally fit in your hand, like little tiny things that fit in your hand that are toys, all the way up to things that the military police use, that the farmers use for, putting down things on their, they don't irrigate crops with them. They probably put poisons out with them or something. Let's say fertilize crops. But the farmers will use them quite a bit. They're definitely used in search and rescue, right? Like, so those are the big drones out there. Um, but what we're dealing with most of the time as content creators is the smaller stuff, the toys, the consumer level, the uh, uh, inexpensive end of the spectrum drones that are cameras. Inexpensive drones on the low end of the spectrum are incredibly effective for our YouTube videos, however. So, we're talking about a lot of drones, and there are a lot of companies that market them for us and people that just want them for their vacation photos and stuff. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about drones, and because the drones are capable and like physically capable of going up into the air, and because there are rules about the air, we get into some issues with licensing, regulation, rules and procedures and stuff like that. Then we get into, well, that's pretty much what we're going to get into. We could potentially get into issues on the platforms, but I'll just, spoiler alert, there are no issues on the platforms. Basically, the only issues on the platforms would be if the platforms were at all liable or responsible, and they're not. So they basically could care less if you're doing anything reckless or stupid or even illegal with a drone on their platform, because they're not held responsible. So again, kind of to short circuit that whole line, I didn't even include it in the topics today because it's not really an issue. I know it can be a concern with somebody who's not familiar with the topic, but that's why it's not included in the list of stuff we're talking about today. But what we are going to be talking about is people that are using it on YouTube, because first thing I'll talk about is when we use a drone in the United States. I think it's the same in most countries, but I'm not sure. So we'll just say in the United States, we're either flying that drone commercially or we're flying it recreationally. And what that really means is, do you need a license or are you flying it without a license? So in the United States, if you fly it with a license, we'll talk all about that. But if you're going to fly it without a license, you're really required to go to the FAA, who is in charge, the Federal Aviation Administration, who's in charge of the sky or the rules of the air, or whatever you want to say, the airspace, and pass what's called the trust test. It's like a free test that you can do on, a free test you could do online that is something like 15 questions or something. It's pretty basic, but it's essentially letting you know that there is air and that the FAA does regulate it, and that there's things from airplanes and space stations and satellites and stuff all the way down to hot air balloons and gliders and, well, our drones, but also like hot air balloons and helicopters, I guess it wasn't to get it, that might be in our space. So even though it doesn't seem like there's nothing up there, if you think about it, you never really know when an emergency or a police helicopter might be there, or an emergency might be taking place. And we don't think about that, but the airspace is clear so that an airplane who might need to avoid something or something, it knows that they have space up there, and we wouldn't want to be hanging out up there. So anyway, that's what the FAA is all about. And because because that air is regulated, in order to participate in that, they have a procedure for that, and that's getting a license. Now you can fly recreationally, but the trust thing that I was kind of talking about is to let you know that there is these like this to be aware of the altitudes, the basic altitudes of this airspace, and to know that when you're flying recreationally, essentially stay out of the deep end, right? Like, don't get in the way of stuff and don't fly really high. It's also like, don't fly out of the line of sight. I haven't taken it because I went straight to the pilot's one, but it's very basic, and it's just the simple rules, sort of like the basic safety rules type of thing. So when you're going to fly recreationally with that, you can get your basic safety rules. We'll go a little bit more into that in a minute if we need to. But the alternative to that would be if you fly commercially, and that would be according to the FAA, anyone who flies for a profit. And that doesn't necessarily mean somebody's paying you to fly. It just means that, there's a commercial involvement in it. So that's the big question. Does that involve YouTube videos and, who and when and how and that kind of thing? Because that's not really spelled out. It's up to interpretation, but we also have what's happened. We have precedent, I guess. And that's what we'll get into mostly today. So that's sort of what we're talking about, is that we're flying drones, we're using them in YouTube videos, and because the FAA regulates who and when and where people fly drones, we have to make the determination on, as a YouTube person, do we need to have a license to fly this drone? So I know I'm doing this in the middle of the night, but I am doing it live. So anybody who who's listening, I can see that there are people out there. Feel free to ask questions if you have them. So what I did after I listened to Clover's show there, is I went live and explained on the other video essentially why there's a 107 license. And I think I kind of explained it right there. The airspace is up there and we all have to share it. And we're essentially the low end of the totem pole with our drones for a lot of reasons, but mainly because all we can do is get in the way. Like we're fast enough to get up there. We're fast enough to be there, but we're not fast enough to get out of the way. I don't even think we can drop out of the sky fast enough to get out of the way of a really fast moving airplane or helicopter or something. So we're really the most nuisance and the most, probably most dangerous thing up there as far as, the amount of training we get and the amount of issue we can be if we're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's a licensed person who knows what's going on. A random drone that is, completely rogue that no one knows about, being in the wrong place at the wrong time is a whole nother story, right? But we're talking about, why the FAA even has this regulation, and I was kind of explaining that in that other video. So there's this 107 license. There are instances for people who aren't going to be doing anything commercially. You're only going to be flying recreationally. You bought this thing as a toy. You're going to fly around, and it is a lot of fun. I mean, I can tell you, it is a lot of fun to buy one of these things to fly around. If you ever had any interest in like a toy plane or model planes or anything like that, these are so fun. They might look dumb. They don't look like a helicopter. I mean, they kind of look like maybe some sci-fi stuff, but they don't look like a plane or anything. But once you're up there flying, you know that you're controlling this thing and you're wiggling your fingers and it's doing what you want. And it is just so much fun to fly around a thing in three-dimensional space in your backyard or in a park or wherever, you're allowed to fly at. Parking lot, a lot of times it's easy to fly in. Like an empty parking lot is great. The worst that happens is it falls on the ground. But anyway, it's just so much fun to fly these things. And so I definitely want to encourage anybody who's thinking about it and you just want to stick with the recreational side, do it. Or if you got a kid or somebody that's kind of interested, I think it's fun. It's wholesome. It's fun. It's probably science or something. It's just a lot of fun. And remote control cars are fun. Remote control boats are a lot of fun. But the three-dimensional aspect of the drone is so much fun. And I've had planes and things when I was a kid, and you needed a whole entire park with no one else flying because your plane was going to go in a direction, at a speed, and you needed room to do figure eights or something. And that's about all you could do, is big, elaborate figure eights up in the sky, because otherwise the plane would fly away from you, right? So you wouldn't see it anymore, or you'd run out of radio contact or whatever. So the planes are neat, but they're nowhere near as fun as the drones. The drones are just this, three-dimensional thing that you can fly like better than a helicopter, and it's more responsive and fun. So just flying them is fun. That being said, having the cameras on them adds so much to them. Oh, you want a link, Clover? Adding a camera to it makes it a million times better. I'm gonna give it to you in Discord. I think I threw you on before, so I should be able to figure out how to do it. Yeah. Here, I threw you a StreamYard one this time. So with the doing it on YouTube or whatever, you do want to go with that license. And that's what I was talking about in that first video. I'll find out if he jumps in here, if he's seen that video or not. Now, like I say, I watched that video, half of his video, addressed those questions. I was sitting here bored, trying not to do real work, and I figured I'd watch the second half of his video, and I'm glad I did. right? I don't know how much of that you heard. So I watched half of your video. Your video was like an hour. I watched half of it and then made my first video, which I had basically addressed everything in the first half of your video. And then I was just about saying right now. Then I was bored, like after I did that hour of video addressing yours or whatever. And then I'm watching the second half of your video, and I literally came up with like a million questions that you you literally asked a whole bunch of questions, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go live again. So that's what this is addressing the second half.
Cool.
So I think the first, okay, so I have all these questions. We'll hit them if we need to. I know it's the middle of the night, so if you get tired, feel free to jump out. I'm just kind of doing it because I don't know. I saw some guy did a video like DJI ban, and you got like 5,000 views, and I'm like, that's old news, and you didn't add anything to the conversation, and all you did is echo chamber. So I'm going to get in on that. So I'm going to talk about 107, whatever, everything you need to know about using drones in a YouTube video, right? Like I figure that's a cool just project to put up there. So even though I'm doing it in the middle of the night. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for jumping in. Thanks for the questions too, because I think those are super valid questions that get asked. And you have to really, like you were doing, you have to weed through and discover everything. And it's a hassle and it's just annoying. So hopefully this will help kind of.
It's a total pain in the ass, you know.
First off,
I did get I finally, it took an hour there, but, and, the people that hung around while I did that, but, I finally figured out how to get that number or whatever, the FTN, and I finally figured out how to get in. It wanted all kinds of registrations.
Think about it this way. The easiest thing, I agree that it's stupid, dumb, and like layers, but 9/11, dude. I'm sure it all started with 9/11. So basically, you have to apply to become a pilot, and then you have to tell the pilot, hey, I'm coming, or something, is the way I thought of it. Once you are a pilot, you have to do all kinds of other pilot stuff. It's kind of like doctors or something. Like they don't get to just be like, I'm a pilot, and you're just a pilot. Like, no, you have to keep doing stuff. So that so you got one portal that's like here's my pilot's license, and then you got that other portal that's like I'm training, and here's my training stuff. And you have to sign up for both of those.
Yeah, I get it to an extent, but when you have this Neo is a glorified toy, and so
no, we're going to talk about that. You are definitely, like you said, like weird crap.
If I can't run this with my phone. I can put it in manual mode. I can, but I can't film myself when I'm in shooting when I'm in manual mode. So I'm not even. And if you go through some of the practice tests and different courses and things I've been through since I did that live earlier, it talks about how you're supposed to have control of the drone at all times. Well, fuck me, I'm breaking the rules of the certification if I'm not if I just hit a button and let it go. And then the other thing is, even if I put it in manual mode and use my phone, I can't even get it to the top, to the treetops here.
Sure.
So like I can't see off my property with it. It sucks.
Here we go. So
anyway,
I don't want to. It's going to be a little bit jumping around because I'm going to address your questions. It's not really like a guide, but I can still use the transcript to make a guide, so I don't really care. But to jump ahead and answer your questions, think of it as doesn't matter what you're doing with your drone. The FAA is doing this for what drones can do, and I think you said this. Like your drone can get up in the air, even though again you don't want it to. It might just go rogue. And because it can, the thing about drones compared to everything else, we can't get out of the way. Anyway, we can't even get out of the way fast enough for as fast as a plane's going or as fast as a helicopter is going. So that's all that the regulations and everything, all the licensing requirements and stuff is because of what your drone can do and how dangerous it can be when it's doing it, not because of what you're planning on doing with it. So yes, and you're definitely in a weird crack because if you were using toys, I don't think anybody in their right mind could ever say, like you brought up the example of like, the, what's that company, Taiwo or something makes like these little toys that do have cameras in them, but they're essentially the crappiest little cheap cameras ever. And, they look like you're looking through Vaseline or something and the things aren't gyro stabilized. It's like a whole challenge just to keep them in the air. Right. And they weigh nothing. And you couldn't get
like
in the air because the wind would blow them around.
Yeah, it's like the other half dozen drones I bought.
Everything we bought so far is toys, right? And
I've never had anything like this. This thing's awesome.
So it would be ridiculous for someone to suggest that because you had one of those toy drones on your YouTube channel that you'd have to have a license, but because you have one that's what, like slightly different, like one page of a giant 400-page book different than the one right there, like literally that's where that Neo is. It's a toy, but it's an amazing bionic toy. So yes, you don't even have to touch it. So without getting, again, fast forwarding to answer your question, yeah, you're going to be in a limbo zone. But the F-107 whole concept is how to react and where not to be. It isn't so much they give a crap about people making YouTube videos at all. Like, it's literally not that. It's just like, we've officially told you where not to be. And yeah, you have to learn a lot of stuff.
I'm not going to be there. That's the thing, is like,
Well, it all comes down to the definitions of the FAA, whatever. And they came up with, if you're not using it for strictly recreational, then you need a license. So let's get into that. So that's the whole real gist of this. Like, do you need it for a YouTube channel? Like, come on already, lawyers. So I asked the robots, of course, they break it down. And here's the clearest practical breakdown of what actually happens when the FAA targets a YouTube creator for posting drone footage without a 107 license. And this is real world enforcement patterns, not internet myths. How the FAA gets involved is typically because someone reports it, not because the investigators are sitting around or the inspectors are sitting around. This is the FAA. They have to worry about planes and experimental planes and airports. Like, they could care less about YouTube. The FAA investigators will review the footage, the description, and the channel. They'll determine if the operation was commercial in nature, right? Now, again, it's anything done in the furtherance of a business, not just because you're getting paid. So we all know that that's pretty much not even gray area. Like, it's pretty much everything except for minding your business fine in your backyard. So yes, we would become commercial technically. Stuff that would trigger that would be monetized content, affiliate links, channel used for business or marketing, creators saying that the purpose was tied to a business, or recklessness in controlled areas. And that's the big one, right? Recklessness, meaning, can you fly over people? Like, do you even know that answer to that question? Like, the person listening to this, can you fly over cars? Can you fly over a boat? Can you fly over like a crowd of people if they say it's cool? Can you fly over people if, like, can fill in the blank, the thing's too light or it's too heavy, or if it's got props on it, if it's dark out.
Guards, yeah.
So, these are all question marks. Unless you've given a crap really to look into it, you don't even know if that's what's applicable. So that's where, when I now am, as a 107 pilot, watch YouTube videos of people with drones, I'm like, well, that's certainly illegal. Like, wow, that's certainly illegal. And that's something that the FAA is going to be able to tell immediately. So now, like you're talking about a drone that's literally designed. It doesn't even come with a remote control. It's designed to be controlled with hand controls or hand movements.
It's a creator. It's built as a creator tool, right?
Well, it's great. It's created as like somebody who just wants to like follow. Yeah, maybe a creator tool, but I'm thinking just somebody who wants to play around and make like a little home movie or something, or follow the kid on a tricycle, but able to not have the kid fall over. So I'm going to have both kids on the or both hands on the kid, but I want my drone to follow us so I can record it for the mom or whatever. Yeah. That kind of stuff is what this drone's for. And you're right. It doesn't even come with anything. It's not big enough unless it goes rogue. And it can, though. That's the thing. It can decide, I need to go home. And the last time you told it I'm at home was when you were at home, and now you're at the park. So it says, I'm going to go 200 feet up and go to your house.
Well, the Neo doesn't do that, though. The Neo just lands. Like,
I know. I'm just using an absurd example because we're talking
about.
Maybe we're talking about the blah 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 X17.
Like I guess there's a lot of like AI and a lot of technology in the Neo for sure, and so it's possible the firmware screws up. Yeah, I get what you're saying, and it could just continually elevate.
The FAA has to worry about
on its own, like
what the thing can do, not what the Neo can do.
Right.
And then
but does it do it under the? Does it do it? But is it regulated? Are they regulating under the? It malfunctioned, or this is normal operation? Type situation is kind of
Well, I mean,
where
well,
my
that's
mind
two
goes.
questions, I guess. You don't get right. They don't go, oh, you had a negligent misfire. Do you have a CCW? Like, it doesn't matter anymore because you had a negligent misfire. Like, if you knock down an airplane, they don't care if you got a pilot's license. You're going to jail, even if you had a pilot's license.
Yeah.
You're just not. You're going to also lose your pilot's license and not
Yeah.
be able to get another one.
But here the battery would run out before it got into any kind of flight path, or did it like?
Well, anyway,
I
what
mean,
we're talking about
it
though
could
is,
do damage. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it could get to a neighbor's house that's not a family member and potentially try to
all a
land or
neighbor has
crash
to be
into
doing is
something. I mean,
taking their stuff out of the gutters, and you don't know it, and that distracts them, and they fall off of their gutters. That's the kind of stuff you never know. But we're
yeah.
talking, the last part here was what
Anyway,
triggers the enforcement, right? And that last part was reckless, and that's what I was getting at. You're
yeah.
sitting in the backyard, and except for an act of craziness, that thing isn't doing anything more than being in your backyard. Like, if the FAA is looking at that and they've got to determine, and I'm not speaking for the FAA, and obviously I'm not a lawyer and all that
Sure.
shit, but if they're
Yeah.
got to decide what are we going to do with the next 48 hours or the next 48 days, and here's some guy with a Neo talking to it from 6 feet away, and then it shuts off after 4 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, okay, thanks, guy, for complaining. We've made a note of it. At least I'm saying, and realistically, now if you are flying that Neo out of an airplane, while out of a Cessna over
Well,
an
you can't.
airport to watch a fire happen, maybe they're going to go, I bet you this guy
Well,
doesn't have a license because everything about that's illegal.
according to what I've studied so far, you can't fly a drone from another aircraft. But
Oh, everything about that was legal. That's what I'm saying. Like, so that would
yeah,
be
yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
When they're
yeah,
doing their evaluation, that's all going to come into play. And this is real life, right? So
yeah.
the FAA doesn't start with a fine. So when, unless again, you're flying there's that drone that knocked down one of the planes in California when they're doing the flyers.
Sure,
Totally
yeah,
different, right?
yeah.
This is just regular guy flying a drone in his backyard, or worse, probably guy flying a drone, selling the drone, pissing off everybody who bought a license and everything to sell drones or real estate something. Now there's some guy rogue comes into town, starts doing real estate stuff without a F-107, or I keep saying F-107, without a 107,
Yeah,
and he's going to have every real estate guy in town reporting him, every affiliate
right.
guys reporting them, right? So that's the difference. So they
Yeah,
don't
but
starting with a fine. They send a letter requesting information about what happened, and then they'll ask whether you had a 107, because how do they know if you have 107 or not? And then they may ask for the GPS logs and the
well, and
logs from the drone.
even the person reporting, that was kind of my thought too. Of course, you're admitting it potentially here, but who knows? I've looked at testing centers, and like they literally have the tests an hour away multiple times a day every day of the week. So it's not like I'm sitting here. I say I'm
You're
sitting
making it
here.
seem like testing's easy.
Yeah, I'm
It's a
sitting
pain.
here. Well, I know that, but I mean, I'm just saying to be able to get there. It's not like it's a rare thing and it's necessarily hard to get to or whatever.
But
But
like you're saying, for owning a Neo and doing stuff in your backyard, you don't live near an airport, you're not being reckless. Should you need a license? All I'm getting at is I think in real world scenarios, according to my robots, no one's ever been arrested for that. And what they'll do is the procedure is what I'm saying is they're going to ask you about the situation first,
yeah, what are
and
you
then
doing?
right, and because they can't know if you have a license or not until they ask you, right?
Well,
So
even
they're
the
going to
person
ask.
reporting you doesn't. That's where I was going.
Oh, they
Doesn't
don't
know
know.
that, right? So
Well, and
like
so what's that report
somebody, if
even
I'm
worth?
not,
Like, what weight does it
if
have?
the person flying it, is is doing what you're saying. You're just in their own backyard. They're on their own property.
How do they know I'm not at your house?
That sort of stuff. Well, that's true too. And they, all they see is something on the internet. Like they don't know if that person has a license or not. Like all the
No,
drone videos I watched before I bought the Neo, like I don't know if those fuckers
no,
have
you wouldn't know. And even
license.
if
I
they
don't
said on
know.
there, like, I have a 107, like, who's going to know? Like, no one
Yeah,
knows.
right. Yeah,
And that's why
you
the
could
FAA
always say that.
even
Yeah.
has to ask you. So their procedure is to ask you, right?
Yeah,
And then the
right.
next thing is they send a warning letter like, hey, did you know that you're doing something that's wrong and that there's a
Right.
civil penalty for that? Then they'll say, if you keep doing it, right? Then they'll say, hey, you need a license to do that. And you have this much time. Usually it's like 30 days or 90 days to do something about it. And then if you still don't go get a license, then they'll fine you a few $100s up to $30,000, depending on what you were doing. So again, like if
Right.
maybe like the president's brother hates you and you're flying the Neo in your backyard and they're going to go after you for that, you're probably going to get a couple of $100 fine if you're like, screw you, president, I don't care. Right. Like, is your problem, you got some political issue,
Right.
that's going to be the few $100 because you're not causing any problem. Now, if you're flying over the fire, knocking down planes, now you're probably, potentially knocking down planes. Now you're looking at the $30,000 fine because
Yeah.
you're being a nuisance and you're being a jerk about it.
Yeah.
So it takes multiple violations in real life to even get a penalty. What they do is come at you with a inquiry and then a warning and then a letter of correction. And then lastly, a civil fine. In all of this time, you can go get a license and then it's not an issue anymore because it's retroactive. Anything you've filmed, once you have your license, is good to go. Another great reason to get a license if you've been
Interesting.
filming for a while.
Yeah.
Multiple
Well-
violations, totally different. You keep being a jerk,
Well,
you're a criminal. That's totally different, right? Now, what they don't do is take down videos because they can't. What they don't do is ban your channel because they can't. What they don't do is interact with YouTube because they don't. What they don't do is charge you criminally unless you did something unsafe, right? So what YouTube does, nothing, because they don't care. And like I was saying that in the other video, they don't have any requirement to verify your certification. FAA probably, rules apply to us, not YouTube, so they could care less. And obviously they make money with weird shit, so they're happy with that. And then there's a bunch of real world examples and stuff. But I think I hope that breaks it down without trying to act like a lawyer or suggest that you can go bend rules or anything. But essentially, I think that it's a non-issue to some extent, but something that technically on paper is an issue. So we can't discount it because, like you said, it's government.
I wonder if they will ever, because they're, this is all new, right? And technology changes. I mean, just look at the
new
just
from
look
the
at the
20, so it's kind of
look at the look at the Neo and what it can do, right? And it with control free, right? Just push button or whatever. And even the Neo 2 and the voice command stuff and the different things.
marketed that way, so people aren't even talking about licenses. It's like, here, buy this toy and play with it.
So I wonder if some of the regulations might eventually change, right? Where maybe they drop anything under under the 250 grand.
It's sort of like, oh, I'm only carrying a 22, so I shouldn't have the same CCW as somebody who carries around a 45. It would be more like until they come out with some kind of tech that says, I don't know, like a thing can't go over 200 degrees ground altitude. Except when we get into one of the things you got to think about when you start thinking about airplanes and flying, there's above ground level, AGL, and then there's sea level, and we all live above sea level, right? And airplanes and stuff all go off of sea level, but our drones go off of ground level because they don't know what sea level is. I mean, they guess they could, but we don't, as humans, we don't go around thinking about sea level. We just know that I'm standing on the ground and my drone can go 400 feet above me. That's called above ground level, which we have to know about, and we have to be able to translate to sea level if we're thinking about it for airspace and stuff. But for regular people flying around, we can only go 400 feet up, no problem. So your drone is thinking from the place it came from plus 400 feet, where airplanes and charts and everything else might be, talking
sea level plus however many feet. Yeah.
So anyway, so he gets into that kind of stuff. Again, you ever going to need this stuff? It's sort of like
well, that was my thing. So like
knowing it is important, but are you ever going to need it actually? No.
Probably. I've hit up quite a few study guides already, and I went and found a place and did a 60 question test, and I got a 62% on it.
Yeah, you're fine then.
What killed me was a bunch of weather related things, like talking about nimulus and cumulus clouds and shit. And it's like, what the? I'm not a fucking meteorologist.
Nobody is. Yeah.
And then reading the maps, like that got really confusing. Like I answered a lot of those correctly from the study guides, but then there was other things that like the problem was I didn't understand what it was asking for. right?
Sure.
So like
You could reason it out, but you didn't know if you knew.
I did not get the right. I just didn't have enough study time, right? Or I didn't have the right study guides or something, right? And it just didn't explain enough of that where I understood the questions. So I had to just guess on that, which wasn't good.
No, that's fine because, well, okay, don't bother. Well, you have to guess, I guess, because you got to do something. Otherwise, you can't leave it blank. But that's what the whole study tests are about.
Right.
With 60%, you're doing fine. I would say give yourself a week and you'll be fine. I'm going to go through some of your questions from the other thing. We kind of just addressed this one. Will FAA go after a YouTuber for using drone footage? That's really what we're talking about. Technically, they can. And again, we just went over all that.
Yeah.
Process of getting an FAA license. I described it better in that other video, and I'll eventually come up with a more concise process, but it's essentially only necessary for if you're going to make profit or whatever, or use it for business. And then it's just a matter of like applying for your license and then applying for your pilot thing. And then like Clover figured out, you have to like kind of apply twice. It seems like you're logging in twice, but you're applying to apply or something. But anyway, once you get your license, once you kind of are in there, you get it, you can figure it out. But you have to say, I want to get a license. And then they say, okay, now you can go ask for a slot. And then you can go find a slot somewhere to get a license. And this is a pilot's license. So you're going to go somewhere that pilots would go, usually airports or someplace that's a fancy testing center. And it costs you $175. And then if you fail, you lost that $175. And that becomes an issue. Like most people ain't just throwing around $175. So the question is, do I pay to study ahead of time? And a lot of these courses, I think you figured it out. A lot of these courses will cost you $150, but then they'll put a thing on there that says, if you fail your test, we'll give you $175.
Yeah,
so
but
that pay for your next test.
And I looked at some of those, but just with some YouTube videos and some freebie stuff that I found on the internet, I scored a 62.
Oh, yeah. And you only studied for like an hour.
So like, I don't know that. Yeah, just a couple of hours. So a few hours. So I don't know that. I'm just willing to break off $100 or $150 on a course.
I'm just going through the process there. So that's the process. But I hear you. And the answer to that, I'll say in a second.
So you'll take the test. You'll go. You'll set up your day or your time. You'll take the test. What from there? How does it work?
Well, that's one of your other questions. So then you'll take the test, and then I knew like that moment, like I go, when do I find out my results? And she looks at the piece of paper she's handing me and goes, you scored right there. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. So like literally as you take it, as you are walking out of the building, taking it, you know if you passed or not. And then you take that number. It's just like I say, I don't know if you heard any other thing. I go to a testing center where like cops go and like nurses and stuff. There was all kinds of people testing there.
Yeah, so same here. Yeah.
So you go in there and then you come out with like a piece of paper with a bunch of numbers on it. So you've applied to the FAA to test, and then you've started your pilot application, and then they give you this number that you take to the testing center. The testing center tests you, and then if you pass, I'm assuming either way you pass, you get a number. You take that back to the FAA, then it starts the process. That initiates the process. So like your key to like your application.
Okay.
You mean you can fill it out or whatever, but then the last thing you need is like your passing scores. Essentially, you pass your score and you put your passing score into the website. And this was 40 minutes, maybe 20 minutes after I passed. I'm at home putting it in my website, and I think hit enter, farted around, and at some point an hour or two later, I got an email with my temporary good to go. Like, here you go. Here's your temporary license. Yeah, so it's good to go. And then that was during the shutdown.
It said like what I looked up said like 3 days to a week.
I remember you saying that. That's what I was going to say. Like, yeah, it probably they're giving themselves room, and I did it during the shutdown. So whenever the shutdown was happening, I did mine. Sure. And it still just happened. So it's an automatic thing, I think. Yeah. And I passed the test. So all they had to do is like understand that I passed the test, right?
All of it sounds like a formality anyway,
Yeah, we're like definitely have to do everything that a pilot would do, but it's the least end of the pilot, so they probably could care less almost. But anyway, so then listen, according to people who know, and I've asked in some live chats, about a month after that you get the card in the mail. So once you got your temporary, you print that out and just like temporary anything, you're good to go. So like an hour after your test, if you passed, you're good to go fly around your pilot now. So yeah, it's really fast that way. Trust exam. So there's a trust exam for drones, and that's like if you're going to be flying recreationally, just in your backyard or whatever, you're still in airspace, and
you don't have to have that one first, right?
You should probably go do that just for doing it. I never did it because I forgot about it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I thought it was like, do it if you want to. It's for like kids or something. I didn't realize you had to do it. So, or maybe you didn't have to do it when I first got mine, because I first started poking around in there in like 18 when I first went into the FAA.
It doesn't. I haven't read anything yet that says you have it as a prerequisite or anything.
Well, again, they're not going to know because it's just a matter of like, kind of like I equate it to the gun safety rules. Like knowing trust is like just okay, I'm going to be flying something and I am flying it in the air. What do I do? Like trust will tell you, like, don't fly it in front of a helicopter.
That's like basic. Yeah, it's like basic gun safety before you do your NRA certification. Basically.
Yeah. Just basic. Like
you don't have to have it, but
and what you would want to show your kid, you'd want to make your kid do it because it's going to be like, don't fly it in front of a helicopter, which is the biggest issue. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't fly it in front of something that's flying way faster than you, because you are going to lose and you are going to break the bigger thing. But basically, that's the trust. And that's on so you're going to, as a person who owns a drone and who wants to do everything that you're supposed to do, you don't necessarily need to go get your license with the FAA, but you do need to go to the FAA and log in. And you're going to log in and go, I'm flying either recreationally or I'm going to get my license. And once you got your license, you come back and go, I got my license. But in that same place is where that portal, I guess they call it, is where you're going to tell them all the drones you got. And it's because essentially if you do something and your drone comes down or your drone gets something, they know it's your drone, you're in trouble.
Well, only if it's above the 250 gram or whatever.
Oh no, I'm talking like you knock down a helicopter, they don't care how big that drone was. Like they're going to figure out whose drone.
Well, how can you you're not able to register or whatever a smaller drone, are you?
You can. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. You can put them in there and it's just giving you a serial number, and then you take a piece of tape or one of them label makers, and you just have to have you can scribble it on there with a marker. It's just giving your drone a serial number. And the idea is that if you're out somewhere, any police can say, what's going on with that drone? Bring it down. Let me look at it. So if it's not in compliance, then you got to deal with not being in compliance. That's
okay. So the smaller stuff,
under 250
you're not required to register it, but you can, is what you're saying.
I'm going to say you're not required, and I'm assuming you can, but I don't know if you can. But you're definitely not required. Over 250, you are required. Now, under 250 as a recreational, you're going to want to log into there just to do trust. As a pilot, everything we have has to be $5, and that's the $5. I don't know if you heard that. So the $5 thing you were looking at is going into the FAA, telling them what drones you have, paying $5 per drone for their serial number.
That's interesting because the courses that I've looked at so far have said that you can't even, and maybe they've changed something since they put that course out, but they say that you can't even do anything. You can't even tell them you get a number, do anything if it's under 250.
That might be the case. I just remember that whenever I first got my first drone, I had to get a license plate for it. That first DJ I got was 18 from Obnoxious, and I think it was over 250. So I don't know. But then I went and got my second one, and whatever, I've got like 5 in there now. It's different because I need to put them in there. So I guess I didn't pay attention. Like I have to put them in there even if they're under 250 because they want your remote IDs and stuff. I guess what I was getting at is, if you are recreational, you may want to be in compliance. Not so much, I keep saying get in front of a helicopter to use this, crazy example. But really, if it falls down somewhere and it just, somebody gets mad or something, or they smack it out of the air with a broom or something, and now the neighbor's yelling at you or something, or worse, somebody else is doing something horrible with theirs, and you have yours in your hand, you're like, look, here's mine with my serial number. I'm in compliance and I'm holding mine. That one is the same model as mine, but it ain't mine. Like you want to be able to do
That's
that.
true. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of scenarios. So basically, to be in compliance, I guess what I'm getting at is you can check out. And I'm not saying I guess I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if you can register the under 250s, but
Well, you're saying you have though.
as a F-107, as a 107, you have
Yeah.
to, because I want to fly them for money. So I have to do all of mine.
Well,
But as
that's
a
what I'm talking
recreation,
about. The courses I've seen, it says that you have to have a license if you're doing commercial, and we're talking sub 250s. You still have to have a license, but you don't have to register them.
well, the register is the $5 serial number. And if we're talking recreational under 250,
We're not talking. That's not what I'm talking about. I
if you're
didn't
talking
take courses on
commercial,
recreational. I took courses on the 107.
yeah. So then those are, I'm assuming, incorrect. Then if we're talking commercial, everything you're flying commercial has to be registered,
Well,
no
how?
matter the weight.
And the Neo has the appropriate stuff to be able to do that, or do you just put the model? You just tell it what you've
No,
got.
now you're talking about something else. And that's something that something to just an FYI for you, is that none of the practice tests talk about remote ID. So make sure that you study remote ID in addition to anything in the practice test, because all the practice tests I took, none of them even talked about remote ID. They must have been made like pre 2024 or whenever remote ID happened. So what you're talking about or alluding to, I think, is remote ID is required as a commercial pilot on all of our drones. And the little guys, the Neo and the Flip and some of the other little guys being sold as being sold as recreational, they don't want to include the weight or the price. So they don't put that stuff in those because they're being sold as recreational. So if we're going to use them as commercial, you're right. In order to register them, you have to have a remote ID. And a Neo doesn't have a remote ID. So what you have to do is buy a remote ID module associated with your Neo and then register the module associated with your Neo. And it stays with your Neo and becomes the remote ID, becomes your registration kind of trifecta with the sticker. The sticker, the remote ID module, and your Neo become a registerable under 250-gram drone, if you followed me. So it is a procedure, and it's cost $30 for the stupid module, and it adds weight to your drone. But I want to be in compliance, and maybe I can put affiliate sales for all that stuff. Maybe, I don't know. That's always nice. Once you're a 107, you can do that.
What type of weight is those remote IDs? Do you know?
They weigh like less than a 9-volt battery. I mean, there's some amount of grams, but they're made for this, so they're probably. I'm sure there's like the two drone companies, Holy Stone and Ruco, are who I got mine from. So they're made for drones, and they do have more plastic than I think they need, because when you buy strobes, so we're talking things you have to add to a drone to make it in compliance for flying in 107 or just in compliance with the FAA. If you want to fly in dusk or at night, which you can't fly as a recreational at all, and you can only fly with a waiver with a license. But in order to apply for the waiver, you have to be in compliance, and that means get strobes for your drones, and the ones we have on them are not applicable. And those are, just batteries and strobes and a charger. But those are cooler because they make them, I think, smarter. They take some heat shrink, they take a circuit board, and they just heat shrink the circuit board with the battery. So it's literally as lightweight as it possibly be with some heat shrink tubing. But they don't do that with the remote IDs for some reason, probably because they know that's going to be on there forever, and they want to make it like a housing, because they're basically like little housings that I think are extra weight. But I'm not too worried. The thing about that Neo is it can't go do nothing. I had to immediately buy the Flip because the Neo is neat, it's fun, and it's super small. It just outside, it can't do nothing. It's just too little to fight the wind, especially if I'm on a mountain. Like to get to the top of a treetops and on top of a 9,000-foot mountain, it takes like an hour. So the Flip just has more propeller, and it can do that a lot faster.
Yeah, I'm not doing all that though, right?
No, I know. Yeah, it's so frustrating that you got to do all this for the Neo, and you don't really have to. Like I say, you probably could fly that thing for the use we just talked about.
And I don't like the idea of adding the weight. The weight and all is going to be is killer I think, in having to dick with the remote ID. And I'm wondering if I'm wondering if the license won't be enough, you know? I don't know.
Well, again, here's the thing. We know that the way they enforce this is to inquire and then question and then do something about it. And it takes you weeks, maybe. Like,
What were you doing? Oh, you weren't doing anything bad? Do you have a license?
yeah,
Yes. Oh, okay. Never mind.
no.
Good
Are
deal.
you got a license? I'm getting it. Okay, thanks. You know what I mean? Like, are they seriously going to make a third phone call? And then especially if you follow through and get the license. I just can't. Like you said one of the things in your video, like you're such in a weird crack. The only way I could ever see you ever being on the FAA's radar is if somebody who has connections with Trump hates you. You know what I mean? Like, and can get that onto somebody's desk.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's different. You know, I'm going to address the other thing, I guess, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying skirt the law or, you know, do the bend until it breaks or something, because that's really not the thing. But what we're talking about for you is you're talking about a thing that's marketed as a handheld selfie stick, essentially,
Yeah.
and
Or an automated tripod, basically.
kind of, you know, like a tracking thing, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, a tripod with a tracker on it. But because it has that issue, you know what I mean? Like you have to think about that. I guess I was gonna say is it like ham radio? You were saying that. Ham radio. What you're gonna do is like get in the way of other people. Ham radio, you're gonna like.
Yeah,
The
but
worst
like
that
all
can
the
happen
ham.
is like you could trigger a key and like get in the way of like two people talking, and it's critical, and like right when somebody needed a phone number or something, you're in there going hello, you know what I mean? Like that's the worst that's going to happen on a radio, and then they can go shut up and then get the phone number again. A drone getting in the way of a helicopter, I keep saying, like that's catastrophic, and that's
True.
why the license is there. So you kind of said something like you were frustrated.
No, I
What
was
is all this?
getting what I was getting at is like what the distinction I was drawing what had to be with all the stuff that you had to know.
Right, and
Like
that's I guess what I was getting at. Is like that the weather
like
stuff is
for
mainly
ham radio, most of that stuff you need to know if you're going to use the ham radio.
no.
Like,
But I
and
agree.
for
I was going
me
to
with
address
what
that
I'm
though.
doing, I just don't need that. But okay.
Well, for what you're doing, but for a person who's going to get their license, then you
No,
need to
true.
know clouds only because you know that it. Now I know because I never cared about clouds. Like I was saying that before. Like I could care less about clouds. I literally just call the weather station or whatever and find out if it's going to rain or not, and that's all I cared about clouds.
Uh,
But to know that an airplane isn't going to fly 500 feet away from a cloud and you got to be 2,000 feet away from an airplane, now you know, oh shit, I can't fly today because these clouds are way closer than 500 feet or whatever the math comes out to. That's about the only thing you really need to know about. They want you to know what the pilots are doing so that you're nowhere near them. That's, I guess, the only thing I was going to say is like, yeah, you need to know a bunch of dumb stuff, it seems like, but you're really knowing what the pilots know
well,
so that
no,
you
no,
know
no, no,
you're
no,
not to get in
no,
the way
no,
of it.
no. I get you, but
Okay.
like,
Yeah, for a 107,
I
not for
was
you to
doing
get back
I was
flying.
doing the practice test, and it was at talking about if the humidity and the temperature is this much, then
Seriously,
what is that a precursor to this type of a weather event? And you're like,
I
what
know.
the fuck are you
I
like?
know.
What?
And I was saying in my thing, like, you'd think, like, okay, like in ham radio, you go to listen to that question and you'd be like, I don't know that. So I'm just going to remember it's the one that says slightly rainy or something, right?
Right,
I'm just going to
right.
remember that. Well, then when you go to take the test, the answers are so slightly different
They are.
that
Yeah.
it's like they're trying to get you. And that's where I was like, it's frustrating as hell because you really got to know this junk to the point where, like I was saying, the practice, like the ham radio test was, here's the 90 questions. We're going to ask you 60 of them. So here they are. And you could just straight learn them. And if there was that one about the antenna that you never realized, you just remember it's the one that says red wire. And
Yeah.
it didn't even have to know the real reasoning behind it. You just remembered red wire. And ideally, you never got that question in your test and you never had to remember it again. But with this, they give you questions that are very similar,
Mhm.
but then like, did you see the stuff about
Oh,
aircraft
dude.
approach or whatever? Like the one where it's like you're coming into and you're
Uh-huh.
northwest of an airport,
Yep.
and the airplane says, which I was saying, like, you don't listen to a radio. You're not required to listen to a radio. Why would you be listening to an airplane radio? But let's say you're listening to
Uh-huh.
an airplane radio and they say, I'm on a downward blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
Well, that means something. Like that actually is telling everyone where they are in the world compared to that airport. And
Right.
until you know their lingo and that concept of like that, that whole, like, what do they call it? Stacking and the, oh man, I can't think of it now, but the lining up to the field or whatever, the route that they take or whatever. Basically what that question's asking you is whatever. And then you remember in the practice test, I don't know any of this. So I'm just going to remember it's east. The answer is east, like whatever
Right.
it is. But then in the test, it'll be, you're at an airport and it's a whole different question. And now it's like, shit, I can't just remember east anymore. Cause now
I
it's
forgot.
it's the same thing. I have to figure it out. And that's dumb, but it's mainly again, so that, it's the approach, I guess. It's
Well,
so that that when you look at an airport on a map, that here's how the pilots are going to look at that. And you'd be an idiot to set up your drone right here because every pilot is going to be flying over you. But if you set up your drone over here, the only time a pilot's going to fly over is you if there's like a catastrophic event at this airport, because you're in the like dead zone of like nobody's flying over here. And I think
Right.
that's why they make you learn it, I think. But then I've also heard, like you said, watch videos, take practice tests. Everybody's 2 cents on this is that they didn't know what they needed, and it was kind of like thrown together. So they basically took the pilot's test and removed pages, and this is just the stuff that they left for whatever reason. And it's not like they were paying attention, and they definitely didn't include it as much as not remove it. And that's why we see a bunch of this stuff.
Well,
that being said, you're getting like a 70 or something, you said? No,
I got like a 62.
when I did the same thing. I was like doing the practice test and I'd get like a 70 to pass. You need a 70, and I'd get like a 72. I'd get like an 80. I'd get like a 60, and I'd be like, crap, I can't tell if I'm good or bad. Right. And then I just said, screw it. It was like a Tuesday. I said, screw it. I'm scheduling the test for Saturday and I'm just going to figure it out. And between Tuesday and Saturday, I just went through a couple of apps on the phone. I found a good one, and I might still have it on my phone. I can give it to you. And it was like free. It was like, actually, I'll go into that in a minute. But then videos, and then there's a few websites that have practice tests. You probably found those already because there's only like 8 of them. Some of them are really good. I got to where I was passing the practice test by like 90%, 80%, and I knew exactly what I needed to study. Went over and watched some videos, studied the stuff I needed to study. I was hitting like 90s and 100s, going into the test, got a 97. So, like I said, I kind of was already new stuff from Civil Air Patrol back in the day. But I mean, whenever I was like 40 or 50, I don't know how old I am, 50, 40 years ago or something. Yeah. So I kind of had some of it, but it's not like I was a pilot going into this.
Well, the one you're right about it, but the tricky shit is the one. There was one on the practice test. It's like see figure blah 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 section 3 or something, and then it had the question, and the question like had nothing to do with the figure. Like the question had nothing to do with anything that was on the map.
Well, that could just be an error.
I don't remember it, but it stuck out in my mind that I do remember that it was jacked up like that, because I went to the map and then I was like, wait a minute, like what are my options for the answers? And I went.
No,
and
I
looked,
think I know what you're talking about. Like, there's a couple of practice tests where like they'll tell you like look for number 4 on the map, and it's like the map has 2 and 7, like it doesn't have a 4 anymore.
No, it had the number. It's what I'm telling you. It had the number. Like it had the corresponding thing that it was talking to and the corresponding airport it was talking to and everything. But the question had nothing to do with information that you get from the map.
Oh, well,
and I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, that's not indicative of it. It's not trying to screw you like that. That was just a broken question or something on a practice test. They do give you, when you go to test, they give you like a piece of paper booklet, like an actual physical booklet. You take the test on a computer and everything, but you don't need like an answer key. But in order to do it, they're going to have like see reference photo 7 or whatever. And even though it's on the screen, probably wherever you're testing, they also give you a piece of paper still for whatever reason, right? Like because of the olden days. But that book, the spiral book that has all the maps and pictures and reference pictures, has all the whatever you call like appendixes and side charts. So I'm going to say like 10 or 20 of the questions are going to be answerable right out of the book that they're going to give you if you know where to look. And the thing is, that's the stuff that's so easy that you don't even have to remember. But some of the airspace stuff, airspace, right, is divided up. Think of a big airport needs more room than a little tiny airport, so they give them different designations and stuff. So
altitude,
we just have,
yeah,
we just have to know that, and basically to know where to not be. And when you're reading a map, understanding all that, since you're never going to need it again, it's kind of a waste of time to learn all that. So that's the kind of stuff that I just happen to already have had in my head. So I just had to polish it. But I'm thinking somebody who isn't trying to learn everything you don't need to learn, a lot of that stuff is in that, whatever, I don't want to call it a test book. I guess it's a test book, but you know what I'm saying? There's like practice maps that they're going to reference. And in the edges of those practice maps is all this data, because they're giving you a real map, you know, with all the data that you might need. And that's applicable to other questions. In other words, like there's, you know, some other questions going to say like in type C airspace, what's the hashtag look like? Well, you can just go look at the thing they gave you and it's like, oh, looks like this. Duh. Thanks for the answer. Yeah. And that's something that if you don't know that, you might be able to just kind of get that. Right. But a lot of it, I would say 30% of the test is just super obvious stuff, you know, like the 2 questions couldn't be more obvious. Some of it is like, if someone dares you to fly around a thing, like, is that machoism or something? And it's like, those kind of take a while to figure out what they want. Like sometimes they want machoism and sometimes they want something else.
Right.
Like, there's only 2 questions or 2 answers that they want, but they gave you 4 and you have to take a minute to, once you do the practice test a number of times, you figure out the, it's not incompetence, but impatience or something like that is the other one I think they want.
Right.
Let's see. So, why do you need to know this stuff? I think I hit that. The Neo. Yeah, it is such a weird drone that I would say, it would be really tough for all the reasons you kind of expressed, be really tough for someone who reported you to the FAA, for that FAA person to see you in your backyard doing what you're doing and even understand that it's a Neo. I mean, I guess they could if they really investigated and saw your video where you have a Neo or whatever. And then give your real complaint. Now, if they wanted to and they felt like it, and maybe it's another administration and they're going backwards and, you know, retroactively figuring out how to get fines out of people. Yeah, that's where you'd be in trouble. And definitely saying, and here's the drone that I use on Amazon, which we all want to do. That's where, you know what I mean, that peace of mind or whatever. But like I say, I just don't know with that particular one. I just can't imagine. And how petty would someone have to be to try to report a video like that? And how bored would the FAA? I can't imagine the FAA ever being at a place where they have enough people or enough time on their hands to actually ever care about this. And this is such a fine hair split of whatever you want to call like this, you know, this actual issue. Right. With that being said, though, do you need everything you need to know about drones and YouTube videos? Do you need a FAA license to use a drone in your videos? Yeah, pretty much anything you do on YouTube is going to be, they would call it furthering your business. Mm-hmm. So even if you don't monetize the channel and you're just farting around in your backyard, like if you get any kind of clout, I would suspect they could potentially, you know, a lawyer would for sure, but I suspect they could go after you. A lot of what I read said, even if you're simply just, if you like, you're a regular person and you're posting stuff to like social media and stuff. Mm-hmm. Just like here is me teaching my kid how to ride a bike or whatever. Because there are different ads and different things on social media. Like, you know, the platforms, they're themselves are monetized and stuff that, yeah. Well, they could definitely, what do they say, like tie you up or whatever, like just go after you if they really wanted. So now, again, this is such a weird, you know, angle or whatever. That being said, I think the $175 is the worst part by far, because that's unnecessarily expensive for something, I think. After experiencing it, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, for a pilot's license, right? For an actual pilot's license, like, okay, I could see $175.
for drone, as prevalent as drones are, and then all the little ones and all the, you know, it's just
I mean, like they could. Well, I guess I don't want to give the government more stuff to do, but yeah, I could definitely see them saying like, "Here's the $5 one, and it covers pretty much everything." And then if you're really in business, here's the real drone license. Like,
right.
I guess they just didn't care enough to give a shit to look at
Here's
this.
one if you're putting videos on the internet, right? Here's one if you're surveying property and, you know, blah blah blah, and cell phone towers, and
Well,
that's a whole
and I
different
think the
ball of
real
wax,
issue
right?
is because this thing could potentially be dangerous, and because there's like they don't even really get into privacy. Honestly, they don't get into laws or nothing. It's all just safety in the air. But since it's all just safety in the air, really, and they could care less about any of that other stuff, yeah, it should just be like an elaborate trust. You know, here's the trust if you're on a flight in your backyard. Here's the, whatever semi-pro thing that you have to pass, like certificate maybe or something that's free, and you can do it online so that everyone has all the ability to do it. But this barrier of entry of $175, and you have to take it at a pilot testing thing. And then honestly, I mean, you did it in an hour, and you're a regular, like fairly adapted person who understands the internet. You like built forums like that before, like you know what you're trying to do, and you had to, you know what I mean? It's not like any of this was alien to you, and it took you an hour to wade yourself through it. I'm going to call that a barrier to entry. The only people that can go through that FAA stuff efficiently are people that have done it before. Like it's annoying. So I'm going to call that a barrier to entry in addition to the having to take the test and get to a testing center and the $175. Like they're prohibitively annoying procedure and lame website sucks. And you know what I mean? Like that's another reason why it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. If I was a lawyer though, I'd be like, why would someone do all of that? There's nothing on the drone box that says you got to do all this. There's nothing in regular culture that says, remember to get like a driver's license where everybody knows about it. Like, remember to get your driver's license. Like, hey, you're driving without a driver's license.
Right.
Like this stuff doesn't
Right.
exist. Like you wouldn't know to go through all this horrible procedure, schedule a freaking test, study for it, and then pay $175 for it to fly a drone in your backyard because you're going to put it on YouTube. What the heck? Or, I'm going to literally, what about this? I'm going to get my friend's drone, put it in front of me on a table, right? Talk about it, put an affiliate link on it, and clap my hands and go to bed. They could wake up and give you a $10,000 fine, I guess, $30,000 fine if they really wanted to, for making money off a drone without a pilot's license. You never even took the thing off the ground.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that would apply. So, you're in a weird niche there, but I think there's a lot of people in a weird crack with these drones. And because of that, I don't want to say like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to call that. Like, I think there is this area where their FAA is just not whatever that's called. It's sort of like, I don't
It's
know.
almost like they don't care. And so
It's almost like when
they
kids
half-ass threw some shit
jaywalking or
together.
something, like they can arrest them, but they're not going to arrest them for
It's
jaywalking.
like, hey, we've got to do something about this, and they did. They just threw some shit together. It's like they didn't really care, but they wanted some shit out there, so if anybody complained, they could say they were doing something.
There has to be
Typical
consequences
government.
for craziness. And when you think about
Yeah, right.
we were
Right.
kind of, I think we talked about this a bit.
But it's kind of like laws in the sense of stealing from somebody, right? Like it really doesn't come into play unless you've stolen from somebody, right? Like it's you have
well,
to
you
like
don't even know
get
these things exactly, I
caught.
guess.
Yeah,
Well,
you
but
kind of have
but
to.
there's a moral thing
I don't
about
know.
that. What
Well, it's
I'm
true.
thinking
This
is
is
now that
true.
I've
Yeah.
got my 107 and I bought it, or I took it, I studied for it and took it mainly because I want to do real estate stuff. I've just thought that was neat. I used to do real estate stuff before YouTube, but what we would do is called, what the heck did we call them back in the day? You would take a camera and you would take a whole bunch of still pictures and they would kind of steam that together into a slideshow because we didn't have video on the internet. This is a long time ago. And that was like fancy. And we would get paid a lot of money to basically set up a camera on a tripod, take all these pictures. It was, real estate has changed a lot since then, I'm sure. But anyway, so I can remember how fun it was going to like big fancy houses and getting paid to go hang out in a big fancy house for like an hour with some camera stuff. It's like basically getting paid to do your hobby in a big fancy house, right? So how cool would it be to fly a drone around and get paid by a real estate agent or somebody? So that's what I thought it would be neat to explore.
Yeah.
Maybe help pay for the thing, or even make a
Sure.
couple of bucks, right? If I can hook up with
Yeah.
somebody that can have me out there once in a while.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that? Anyway, so that's why I kind of went after this thing. What the hell? Where was I going with that?
I know, but some people don't care about all that. But yeah.
Oh, you mean that aren't gonna
Yes, that aren't going to do that.
do all that stuff.
Don't care about anything. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. So what I was going to say is, because that's what I was going to do with it, right? As soon as I got my license, I started paying more attention to that. Went on YouTube, started looking at what's out there, right? Like, first off, I'm going to see who else is doing this kind of stuff, right? And I type in something like real estate drone footage, Tucson or Arizona or something like that, and immediately it's like illegal shit, doing illegal shit. And this is, drone flight over Tucson. Like, oh yeah, that's over Tucson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm assuming if the FAA seen this, they would, I don't know what they do. I guess they can't take it down from YouTube. But essentially, like, let's say there's all kinds of stupid rules. You're going to learn them when you go to FAA school or whatever. For one, you can't fly over people. So good luck. Like, you're not supposed to fly over people. So when you see a video, it's like flying over Tucson, or like flying over the bike rally or something. And it's like starting right over people's heads. And it's just like thousands or hundreds of people's heads, at least, and dozens of people's heads. And you're just flying over it. It doesn't matter what drone that is. Like, nobody, you can get a waiver and technically do that. But the guy on YouTube who's got like 4 videos did not get the waiver and have a pilot's license and doing that.
Right. Yeah.
So, and doing it with the right kind of drone and stuff. So I was just watching like illegal thing after illegal thing after illegal thing. And that's, I guess, where it's different than, I mean, again, I don't want to say it's different than a ham radio, but I don't want to say it's worse, because sometimes with a ham radio, you can be a nuisance. I guess technically you could be literally just doing the wrong thing at the wrong time during an emergency and like really screw things up and kill people. But you know what I mean? There's a lot of ifs there. With the drone, though, it's, I think, a lot more obvious. Like, you can fly that drone over somebody's backyard, be weird with it, privacy things, and, without any kind of rules at all. I guess that's where I was going or coming from, is that they have to have these rules so that when somebody is doing something crazy like that, like flying it over somebody's house and taking pictures of their backyard or something, pool party in the backyard or something, and some rando is like filming it from a drone, like, there's going to be issues there. And there's got to be ways for the enforcement to grab them, right? Like, so they have to have some rules, like you're saying, and they just came up with whatever they came up with. And I'm sure that at the FAA, somebody came in with like the safety book, and then somebody else came in with like the mechanics book or something. Like, somebody came in with the weather book, and like, I believe that they should only be able to fly 300 feet from weather, or like, no, they should be able to fly 1,000 feet from weather. You know what I mean? Everybody had their own like agendas. So whenever they were actually coming up with these rules, like, what kind of crazy conversations was that? Like, how much time did they give them, and how much input did they really take? Like, I have no idea if anyone has ever even looked into that.
Yep. I gotta jump.
Yeah, I hear you. So I did this in the middle of the night, mainly because I was just bored. I was not trying to do some work.
Oh, it was good stuff. I appreciate it.
So do you think you're gonna get it?
I probably will. Yeah, I will work toward it. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the 175 that's the biggest. Just for me, it was the biggest. Like,
it's annoying as fuck.
And then you have to spend number of days wasting your time studying, which you could be doing a million other things. On the other hand, as soon as I did it, especially after I passed, but as I did it, like I say, after I did it, I guess, I immediately felt like, dang, I want to go do something else, because it did feel good to have to study for something and then have to pass it because I wanted to.
Sure.
And there was like an actual, you know what I mean, like, challenge to it. It wasn't just like a gimme, because there's some other shit that I've passed. It was like, yeah, of course I'm going to pass it. Like, even a CCW, like, unless you're broken, you're going to pass a CCW, right? But this is something that you have to study for. And like you, I didn't know nothing about weather, and I didn't know as much about airspace as I thought. But yeah, it was sort of a worthwhile thing, is just like a challenge. Unless you're a kid who's just gotten out of school, then I can imagine the last thing you want to do is have to do this over again.
Right. Yeah.
On the other hand, you're probably used to doing this, so it's probably you can do it in stride. So
Right.
get off your butt. But anyway, yeah,
Right.
it's good to hear. And then plus, I think it'll give you a lot of stuff to, very comfortably be able to do all the affiliate stuff. Nobody
hmm
get gruff with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't have to worry about it.
But I
You know,
guess you could
do
say make
something
it
I
worth
do.
your while too. Somebody just doing YouTube
Yeah.
videos, like good luck trying to make any money off your YouTube videos. Like, but at least if you're, um, doing reviews of the gear and stuff, you can have a potential to make some return on an investment.
Yeah. Well, it's just that, not having to worry or look over your shoulder or whatever. That peace of mind is
Oh, and then
good
for
too.
you, and I've already explained this. I was able to use the drone at goals. So having
Oh,
it
that's true.
for you,
Yeah.
having it, you might end up getting more drones because if you go to like that the thing you just got invited to in New Mexico,
That's true.
I
Yeah.
bet you could have
Yeah.
flown there. I bet.
Yeah.
Although I say that, and every time I look at somewhere I think is in the middle of nowhere, who is messing up everything in the middle of everywhere? It's freaking military flights. Like they do whatever they want and they fly really
Right.
low. So yeah, they mess up a lot of stuff in the middle of nowhere.
Well, and I got to get out of here, but that's part of what pisses me off regardless is with the Neo and this is it flies so low and
Already checked your area. You
it's
got
like, oh
you
my
get
God.
yourself the app from the Pilot Institute, and that you just anywhere you're at, you just zap it, and it'll tell you if you can fly or not. I've already zapped you can fly everywhere around your house. You're good to
Oh
go.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. All right. I'll
All
catch
right.
you later.
Yep.
Bye.
See ya. All right. So that was kind of discombobulated, I guess, but I didn't really have too much of a outline other than to go over the what the robots had said there. Kind of mention that all with Clover. So I would say it's not a gray line. You do need to have a 107 license if you're going to fly anything other than recreational. However, the reality is that the FAA is a government entity, and they have enforced this before with YouTubers. So you can look at the historical like procedure or the historical scenarios, and I think that's what we tried to express here. So there's definitely no excuse or no reason to skirt any knowledge or to bypass anything that's necessary or um, what's the word? I guess necessary is the word, because not everything is all that big a deal. Like the trust is basically your easy or your introductory mod or version of the rules to give you like the nuts and bolts safety. There's plenty of YouTube videos, so you can do your own self-education and get comfortable how to use your drone. There's plenty of videos on whatever model you might have, and then just in general, moving a drone around in space. One of the things I've enjoyed about it, besides just flying, is learning the techniques and learning the, I don't know what to call them, I guess techniques, like the different moves you can make with the drone. And because again, you've got the drone, you've got the camera, and you're creating a shot with that, with the movement of the camera. So people that have done this before share those techniques and those things, so you can learn how to fly your drone. And then once you learn how to fly it, you can learn how to film with it, I guess. Is that the way to say it? Once you've done that, you get to explore where to use your skills. So first you have to figure out how to fly the thing. Then you figure out, how to fly it in a cool way, I guess, so that the camera's catching stuff good. Then you have to go do that in places that are cool, because otherwise you're just doing it in your backyard. And then it goes on from there, right? Then you have to figure out how to edit it and all the rest. But along with that, I guess we have this line that we're going to pass somewhere where we're getting into commercial. And I think Clover brought it up from a different angle, but when you posted, any use of it, anytime you're posting it, you're no longer just doing it for your own recreational. At least I suspect that's how a lawyer could look at it. As soon as you're posting it, it's available for other people to see it, and it's commoditized, I think. So I might be wrong on that, but I'd say there's some concern or some reason to consider getting that 107 for anybody who's going to be posting the videos. Like in other words, anything other than just using it at home for your own use. But again, that's the letter of the law, the black and white, like, the fine line. Are they ever going to, or have they ever, or would they ever go after, again, that guy who's using his Neo drone to basically film something that he wants to keep both hands on? I just can't see that. Let's get into that point. So I don't know if we're not getting any questions out there. So I know it's weird talking to a bunch of people, because we have a lot of people joining us, and it's the middle of the night. But I guess you're all preoccupied or something, so nobody's actually asking any questions. Clover was able to join us though, so we did get a lot of those questions, or at least a lot of the information back and forth during that. I'm going to go through the questions that I was going to address here. We won't go all over again. Will the FAA go after that YouTuber? So that's pretty much the first chunk of this show was about. Process of getting the FAA license. I won't go over that again. We've talked about that. That trust exam for drones is what you'd get as a recreational flyer. Totally worth doing. We talked about testing. Sounds like Clover has figured out when and where he can get his testing done. And again, that's like $175. Studying, we addressed that. There's plenty of YouTube videos. What I did is took some online practice tests, and those, until I took those over and over, or took as many of those as I could, or both. Some of them lend themselves to being taken over and over, and some of them are a real hassle. So you just use them once, and you'll find out that a lot of the online resources are repetitive. So there's really no need to go to all 8 of them, 6 of them cover, the stuff is repetitive. But between doing the online tests, figuring out what I was not getting correct, watching YouTube videos to strengthen those areas, and then going back to the practice tests, worked pretty well. There's some apps that I just discovered. I didn't use anybody's advice. I just downloaded 2 or 3. 2 of them sucked, and the third one was pretty decent. Oh, I didn't get a chance to tell Clover about that. I'll tell him about it some other time. But the app I used was pretty decent, and it didn't cost anything. And once I was able to use those practice tests to determine that I was kind of sharp on all the areas, I felt pretty comfortable taking the test. Now, you schedule the test and then show up and take it. If you fail it, you're out the $175. If you don't show up, I think you're also out the $175. So if you get down to the line and you haven't studied, or you're just not feeling it, I believe you can reschedule. And I don't know if there's a fee or not for that, but I think you can reschedule at least once, if not a couple of times. So you just want to keep that in mind. It is pretty rigid, and it is pretty inflexible, I guess, with the testing. And it's probably because it's a pilot test, I guess. Definitely the worst part of it. Or definitely agree there should be an online version for drone, especially for people that are just doing this medium level droning, where it's like not just playing around, but also not doing it really professionally. There should be an online version for that. Clover had talked about in his video that he's in a weird place because of the Neo being such a tiny little drone that doesn't even have a remote control, that's designed to be used with your hand gestures, that's really just a flying tripod or a flying tracker. It's really just it's one tiny step up from a toy, but because it is a decent company and it is well made, and it does have the ability, with some time, it would take a while, but it could get up into the air and be a problem, because even though it's only 249 grams, anything up in the air when a fast moving engine is going fast, it could be an engine or it could be an issue. He's in that weird place where what he's using it for and how he's using it is just so close to the line that it's got to be as frustrating as heck for him. And we already talked about, like, he has to go an hour and drive, or drive an hour and spend, that means 2 hours. That's an hour there and an hour back, and spend $175 for the test just so that he can have this thing not even be on a remote control in his backyard. Just to be in compliance, and that's Clover's situation. But think about how many people are in that situation. Just super frustrating. The Neo, we keep talking about it. If you want to buy one, go look at my links. I've got a bunch of links out there. I'll put it in the link in the description or something somewhere. But they're awesome. It is literally it's my favorite drone. It's my favorite drone. I have a lot of drones, and I really like flying all of them. The other ones are more powerful, and the other ones have better cameras. But the Neo, you can put in your pocket, and you can just carry it, and you can fly it without a remote, or you can fly it with your cell phone. Or I can fly it with any of my, well, not any, but a lot of my remotes. So it is fun. It's a little slower, but to be honest, I'm not the guy who's trying to fly my drones really fast. I'd rather fly my drone slow, like through a bunch of trees, like just flying through tree trunks or whatever, and then come out and fly up in the air and come back down into the tree trunks and weave around, then do the up and down a chimney or back and forth, up and down a street sign or something, like some of the people that do those really fast ones. But the drone couldn't, or the Neo couldn't do that anyway. It's pretty slow. So anyway, I'm saying as a slow drone, it's easy to fly and it's really comfortable to fly. It's just not a performance drone. Let's see. Then Clover said, why do you need to know all this stuff? I addressed it already, but mainly because, again, we're flying around a thing that potentially could get in the way of something that going really fast. And we would break it. And that's the dangerous part. The other side of it would be, you need to know this stuff because I kind of mentioned when I was watching some of the YouTube videos, people just do some reckless stuff unintentionally. I'm sure they don't realize, but when they're flying their drone up above a crowd of people, they've never encountered a situation where their drone just fell out of the sky, but that is a possibility. You don't know that there's not a crazy microwave beam being sent across something and inadvertently or intentionally, and you're flying your drone right through it, and now you've lost connection and your drone freaks out, and next thing you know, something happens and it falls to the ground. You hit a wire that you didn't see and it falls into the crowd. There's all kinds of stuff that could happen, and the reasons we have rules for the flying the drones the way they have them is mainly so that you're not in a circumstance for that thing to fall out of the sky on top of people. If they say you can't fly over people, and that's the rule, and if you're following the rules, then you're not going to drop it onto people, ideally, right? So I can see why they make us know all this stuff. Whether or not everybody agrees with everything, that's up to you. We could have discussions. That would be an interesting discussion on what the drone laws should be. I suspect people that fly drones have different opinions on what the laws should be than people who stand around watching drones fly around, right? And everybody gets a say in it, right? So that'd be an interesting conversation. And then the last one was, is this like ham radio? Or why is this like ham radio or something? But, we adjusted a little bit again. We adjust all these things. I think the big difference is that these things, the drones, have the potential of falling out of the sky or getting in the way of something. And then there's lots of other things too. They could be used for bothering people or spying on people, that kind of thing. Annoying critters, just flying around every day in your backyard might be freaking out your neighbor's dog or something, and they have a right to not have their dog freaked out, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on with this, where ham radio, you're not really bothering. Maybe you have an antenna that gets in the way of people, or maybe your ham in radio is like bothering the neighbor's FM radio reception or something. But aside from those kind of issues, I don't think I think they're a little different because the drones are in real life. Drones physically exist, where ham, just unless you're on a radio signal, nobody knows about ham. Nobody cares about ham. All right. Well, I don't know if this was useful or not. I'm going to try to take the transcript from this and turn it into a blog post or something to attempt to help weed through some of that. An hour and a half doesn't really help make anything concise. So we'll chop this up. It's weird again that everybody's out there and nobody's saying nothing, but that's the way you're going to be. We're going to end it. See ya.
Shit. Ninja? Ninja! Ninja!
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.